Hey guys, so this week I kind of just want to talk about the Dragon Ball Super Remake. It's kind of something that, like, for the past few weeks has been a big conversation online. A lot of people are looking forward to it. There are people, of course, who are just like, why? It's not really necessary, and, kind of disappointed in that. But I want to talk about, like, obviously the pros, the cons, and why it's still a good thing for Dragon Ball. Okay. All right. So I was at, Genki Dama Matsuri, watched my video, and I remember my initial feeling when they announced this was disappointment. I'm just throwing it out there and more or less just feeling like, why? I'm not sure how many of you out there are watching my, Dragon Ball Super manga versus anime series, but basically I pointed out in the first episode, which was, Battle of Gods, that the movie version was just fine the way it is. The movie version's great. The TV anime and the manga version just not being that good. The manga version being guilty of being rushed, which, if you watch my series, that's one of the biggest problems with the Dragon Ball Super manga, is that it's rushed. But that's a video for another day of my feelings on why the Dragon Ball Super manga has really got its issues, to be honest. Toriyama did not write it, don't forget. But the TV anime version is even worse. Like, the TV anime version of Dragon Ball Super, for the most part, I know many people, and you could tell I love Dragon Ball Super. Dragon Ball Super has a lot of criticisms, and there are so many times I meet Dragon Ball fans that just don't like Dragon Ball Super, and mainly because they just know the TV anime version, and I'm willing to accept the TV anime version. It's not perfect, but I like it. I mean, honestly, no offense to you guys out there, but, like, if any of you guys are GT fans, you got to feel the same way. GT is very far from perfect, but it has a certain niche for some people that they just click to it. And you know what? Like I said, to each their own. Nothing wrong with it if you like that. That's how I feel about Dragon Ball Super. I like Dragon Ball Super. It's not perfect. Does it need to be remade? That is the main question. And, part of me doesn't really feel like it needs to be remade. However, from the point of view of not really satisfying Dragon Ball fans, but as a method to bring new fans in. For Toei Animation, if they were just to do the Moto arc right now, it might do all right in the ratings. It might do all right. However, you're going to have a lot of young people who have no idea what's happening. Therefore, starting fresh from the beginning with Dragon Ball Super is the way as an entry point for new fans. Dragon Ball Super, let's not forget, is now a little over 10 years old. And when Dragon Ball Super came out, I did a video on it a long while back about why I love Dragon Ball Super. And one of the main things I loved about Dragon Ball Super was bringing new Dragon Ball fans in. Figure this was 10 years ago, and I was seeing kids that are like elementary school kids who are like, Dragon Ball's the coolest thing ever. And I'm like, oh my God, I love seeing these little kids that are like into Dragon Ball. That's so cool. 10 years later, these kids are probably high school kids by now, some are college kids by now. And I, can only imagine that now, if you want to get a new group of elementary school kids into Dragon Ball, Daima was supposed to be that entry point, and Daima did not succeed. There are reasons for this. I put a video out about that as well, why Daima just was a misfire. But with Super, starting fresh from the beginning is why they're doing this. This is the real reason why. Whatever bullshit they want to say about, like, oh, it's because we want to do it the right way this time. No, it's not true. Please understand one thing. And again, if you watched my Super series, you should understand this. Toriyama never wrote any of these stories. Toriyama came up with plot points, character designs, and even, like, threw in some notes here or there, or suggestions, like when they said, here's what the story's doing, what do you think? He'd be like, cool, looks good to me. Or he would be like, well, maybe Goku should do this instead. So he did have say at the end of the day, but for the most part stayed behind the scenes. Like, not even behind the scenes, that's actually the worst thing to say. For the most part, just stayed relaxed in his home and didn't really give a shit. He was retired, let's not forget. So you can't even hate on Toriyama for that, because the dude was retired, but he wanted to come back and help with Dragon Ball a little bit. Let's get this controversy out of the way quick. So yeah, the Motor arc that's coming, the Galactic Patrol arc, I guess is what they're calling it, is being, labeled as the Toriyama's Dragon Ball story here. And yeah, Toriyama had actually the smallest amount of input in this one out of all the Dragon Ball Super stuff. And of course, Toyotaro, that means, did most of the work when it came to this story. And before we jump on the whole, like, pitchforks and, torches, saying, screw them for not giving him props, again, I'm going to go right back to the main point in this big rant of a video that we're doing. And why are they doing this, whole Dragon Ball Super remake is to bring in new fans. That being said, another thing they're hoping to do is capture the nostalgia of Dragon Ball. There are many casual Dragon Ball fans, especially in Japan. I meet them all the time. They're like, "Oh, I like Dragon Ball. Yeah, I grew up with Dragon Ball." They don't keep up with it so much anymore. But if something's interesting, they might check it out. If they say that this was something, Toriyama, made, and they're like, "Oh, that's right, Toriyama passed away. Wow, maybe I should check out this new Dragon Ball." They're using his name. So there are both pros and cons to it. The negatives, of course, are just it's not fair to Toyotaro, who made the story, and maybe the other con would be that it's using a dead man's name. But the point is from their point of view, using the power that his name has, as now he's a legend since he's passed away, and using his name to hopefully bring in more viewership is what they're doing. It's not the greatest thing, but that's why they're doing it. So anyway, let's bounce back to Beerus. That's the first one we're remaking. Okay, let's get it out of the way. The one thing I think that they're trying to sell us all on is the animation quality. It's been 10 years, actually longer, because the Battle of Gods movie is 2013, so it's been longer than 10 years. So yeah, no shit. The animation nowadays is way better than it was then. Second thing is, I'm sure it's been said to death, but Dragon Ball Super kind of slacked on their animation budget. So therefore, that's why you'll have like people jokingly online constantly showing like screenshots of like really bad animation shots from Dragon Ball Super, the TV anime. And yeah, so Super's animation was not the best until they got to Tournament of Power. In my opinion, Tournament of Power, it looked really solid. But yeah, at least the first few arcs, maybe the Battle of Gods, Frieza one, Fakatsu no F, and then of course Universe 6 versus 7. Like there's just a lot of bad animation points. Not all of it's bad. There are also equally like incredible animation points, like when Goku fights Hit and he goes blue Kaioken. That whole sequence is gorgeous. So there are good animation moments, but for the most part, to save on budget, there were just a lot of times where they slacked on the budget. Times where Goku and Vegeta looked like they had like scrawny arms for some reason. It's like I thought these guys, were buff, and so there were times in Dragon Ball Super the animation just wasn't there. So yeah, cool, we're getting new animation. That's awesome. I'm one of those guys where like, hell, I like old anime, so therefore like I don't care if the animation quality is like perfect. Like as long as I like the story, I find it fun, I'm engaged in it, and that's all that matters. But for some out there, yeah, the animation of Dragon Ball Super, hey, if it looks better, they might get into it more. I want to talk about something that for me is what needs to be improved. Story-wise, nothing needs to be improved. Battle of Gods is perfect in the movie. There's nothing to change with the story. It's a simple fucking story. I don't need to say the F word. It's a simple story. There's nothing really need to change there. However, here are two main things I think need to be done in this remake. First and foremost, if they're going to remake all of Dragon Ball Super, Goku's personality. This is one of the biggest criticisms. I meet a lot of people who like Dragon Ball, and they'll be like, "Oh, Dragon Ball Super, I can't stand it." I'm like, "Why?" Because Goku's so goofy and stupid in it. I'm like, "Okay, yeah." For some reason, the TV anime version, again, watch Battle of Gods and Fakatsu no F, the two movies, the theatrical films that were Dragon Ball Z at the time, the films, Goku's not that stupid in those movies. You know what I mean? So when you get to the TV anime version of Dragon Ball Super, they did the whole Homer Simpson thing, like the whole like Homer Simpson gradually got stupider over time. Basically, they made Goku into this absolute buffoon of a character, and he's never like that, really. So he should never have been like that. But Dragon Ball Z is also guilty of this, to be honest. Like, there's a lot of filler stuff in Dragon Ball Z of Goku acting like a dummy, and that Goku in the manga never acts like that. So it's just kind of this thing with the TV anime makes him sillier, I guess more cute, appeal to younger people. But Super went too far with it. And even for me, who like defends Super to death, like because I love Super, Goku is a little annoying at times, and I'm willing to admit that. It's why when I meet people who like hate Super, I'm like, all right, maybe give the manga a shot then, because he's not that stupid in the manga. So give the manga a shot then. But if they remove that aspect and have Goku be like how he's supposed to be, which he can still be a little silly at times, that's kind of who he is. Like, you don't want to take that completely away from him. But he's also like a middle-aged guy at this point. So like he he's got tons of experience. He's not an idiot. So treating Goku too poorly is also not the way to go. Like find that nice ground where he's mature, but he can still be a little fun. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. The second thing, and I think there are going to be a lot of people that are expecting this. I've actually, I'm not the only one thinking this. And that is another reason this remake could be done well is Goku going Super Saiyan 4 against Beerus on Kaio's planet, and Vegeta going Super Saiyan 3 when he flips out about Bulma getting slapped. I think adding those two things will keep Daima, to help connect it better to Daima. Because at the moment, Daima came out, it left, and Toriyama sadly left us without being able to fill in any of the gaps that Daima created. Daima created all these plot holes that people are just like, none of this makes sense now. The way you start fixing that is by boom. You just say, here's, remaking the Beerus story, and boom, Goku did try to go Super Saiyan 4, but it didn't work because only God was able, was what Beerus needed to fight. And then same with Vegeta. Vegeta, when he flipped out, went to his full power, which would have been Super Saiyan 3. So you could basically do these slight little tweaks. It does not harm the story in any way. I said this back when Daima came out, and I said, people were like, oh, it makes no sense. And I'm like, you know what? Use your imagination. I said, I even said this in some of the videos I put out. I'm like, maybe Goku went Super Saiyan 4. Maybe Vegeta did go Super Saiyan 3. In the end, it wouldn't matter. Super Saiyan 3 will not beat Beerus, nor will Super Saiyan 4. So therefore, just use your imagination that they did that, and it's still the same outcome. Goku goes Super Saiyan God, etc. So I have a feeling that they are going to do that. If they don't do that, it's a missed opportunity because they need to start filling in these gaps that Daima created. Now, rumor is they are, in fact, going to remake all of Dragon Ball Super. The next story would be, of course, Fukatsu no F, Resurrection F. This one is in dire need of a remake. I like the movie. The movie's fine. It is what it is. Plus, it has the badass Maximum the Hormone song in it. So, to me, the TV version of the anime was never going to hold a candle to that because you can't, licensing, you can't have that song in there. Manga. There is no manga version. Watch my video. I talk about it, and that's why I didn't make a video on that story because there is no manga to compare it to. Dragon Ball Super twice skips over stories from the movies, and that would be Fukatsu no F and the Brawly movie. It just, manga skipped over it. Again, the manga to me is not as good as some people say because it really just rushes the story too much. Resurrection F, the TV anime version, is awful. Why is it awful? Is because it completely goes into filler territory. For some reason, Dragon Ball Super, the TV anime, please understand this, was meant to be canon 10 years ago. Both the manga and the anime were coming out at the same time, and both were technically canon because Toriyama basically had a hand in the story. The TV anime version did what Dragon Ball Z did. Dragon Ball Z is canon, but there's also a ton of stuff that isn't canon in there. Once I was watching it on TV, I remember suddenly the Ginyu frog showed up, and I'm like, what? What's happening? Because, Fukatsu no F, this story is canon, this story, but why is Ginyu frog here? So for those who don't know about the manga as well, he does get switched out to a frog, Ginyu, back on Namek. That's it. You never see him again. The whole part where he tries, he switches with Bulma, and there's that whole thing, wants to switch with Piccolo. That never happens. Then, they bring everybody to Earth using the Dragon Balls, and, Ginyu Frog goes to Earth, and you see him on Earth. That never happens. Ginyu probably blew up with Namek, and, maybe he did go to Earth because they did technically wish for everybody to go back to Earth. So you could argue that, well, he probably did go back to Earth, but the manga just doesn't deal with it. It doesn't show it. It's not part of the story. So once he shows up in the story in Super, immediately I was like, this is filler. Oh my God. This is definitely not part of the movie. This is not part of the story. But for the most part, the TV anime version of both Kami to Kami and Fukatsu no F are dragged out horribly. In my video I did on the Battle of Gods manga anime comparison, I actually do a sped up version of Goku going God for the first time in the TV anime. It is one of the most longest, most boring things I've ever watched. It just keeps going. Instead of it just having him transform into God, it just does this long thing. I don't know why. So the TV anime version was terrible. Fukatsu no F needs to be remade. Yeah, I think it does because, like I said, you have the movie version is fine, but when you want to make a TV series, you do need to have that story as a TV series as well. Universe 6 versus 7. This is where things get interesting. So Universe 6 and 7 are slightly different. I made a video about it, the manga and the anime. There are both pros and cons to both the manga and the anime. So a lot of people be like, all right, fine, just do the manga version, it's better. The manga version is better, the manga version is better. Yes, it is to a point. If they go the manga version, they have to completely stick with one thing, and that is Super Saiyan Blue in the manga has its own like sub story, and that is Super Saiyan Blue is a power that Goku and Vegeta have yet to perfect at this point. They can use it. It drains a lot of their energy. They can't use it for long, and therefore, they haven't even fully unlocked its full potential yet. That's actually in the manga as part of the story. So when they're fighting using Blue against like Hit, it's not working well, not because he's so much stronger and faster than them, but not because that he's so much stronger and faster than them, but because they haven't fully controlled Blue yet. And this story gives us Goku beating, I should say beating Hit, but like close to beating Hit, it seems. In the TV anime, it's Blue with Kaioken, which is his new technique. It's one of my favorite. I have a figure of it right there. It is one of my favorite things in Dragon Ball is Blue with Kaioken. There's something about that, I like the color blue. I love Kaioken. It looks sweet. That is not in the manga. He doesn't do that. But a cool thing is Akira Toriyama actually liked that addition in the anime. So when they got to the Tournament of Power story, he added into the manga that Goku would do this transformation. So it's one of those things that's not the first time, to be honest, if you know about like the Bardock TV special, where Toriyama saw like something that the anime did that he didn't write, and it's like, oh, I like that. So Toriyama sometimes did get inspired by what the anime writers were doing. It's kind of cool. But in the anime, or in the manga, I should say, in the manga, Goku fights Hit and he does what his new technique is, and that is using God mode for the speed, because God mode, they're really fast. And then when he's ready to strike, he switches quickly to Blue for a powerful strike using the power of Blue, and then back to God for the speed. And he kind of does this switcheroo thing back and forth. It's awesome. It's something that then gets carried on when you get to the Future Trunks arc, and Vegeta finally is able to use that technique Goku does, where he goes God and Blue back and forth when he fights against Zamasu. Goku Black, I should say. But basically, this is something that's in the manga that's never, ever addressed in the anime. So if they do remake, if they do that, that's cool. There is something else that needs to be done in this story arc, and that is Piccolo's fight. I mentioned it before in this channel. Piccolo is my favorite Dragon Ball character. And the anime version, because I saw the anime version before I read the manga of this story arc, and I was just, Piccolo has his one moment to shine against Frost, and it is the worst episode in the whole season, probably. It's just him, the whole episode just doing this, like dodging attacks, and it is boring. Not in the manga. In the manga, they have a fight, and it's like a fight, and it's awesome. Piccolo gets to shine, basically. And of course, it ends the same, where Piccolo gets, cheated out of it, but the point is Piccolo kicks his ass first. So it's really cool, and I just like to see Piccolo get his moment to shine every now and then. Then there's the thing I want to talk about that I don't like the manga did, and that I don't want them to take away from the anime, and that is Vegeta and Kabe's relationship. And you might say to yourself, wait, no, Vegeta and Kabe have a connection in the manga too. And not really. The connection that they have in the manga is not even comparable to the anime. So the anime really wanted to drive home this point that Vegeta really connected with Kabe, and therefore he looked on almost like a little brother in a way, even though he has a brother. But that's a story for another day too. But anyway, Vegeta has this real strong connection to Kabe, and he does this whole it's one of my top anime. It's one of my top super anime moments of all time. It's in my one of my top 10 videos I did. I think a few different top 10 videos I did. And that is Vegeta bowing down to Kabe basically and telling him that someday I'd like to come meet the Saiyans in your universe and stuff like that. And it's just a really amazing scene, and giving him that advice to be a better Saiyan and stuff like that. This whole scene is gorgeous, and it's not in the manga. It's something the manga version slacks on in this scene. And when you get to the Tournament of Power, it's even less there. Vegeta has no motivations. I know there are people out there who have recently, seen comments saying that they prefer the manga version of Tournament of Power. That's fine. Or, like whichever version you like. But Vegeta, in my opinion, his character is terrible in the manga, and he even gets chumped out in a really bad way in the manga. So the Future Trunks story arc. The Future Trunks story arc could use some work. Obviously, let's, again, animation needs to be fixed up. Yeah, sure. Goku acting like a dumbass. Sure. Fix that up as well. Again, we get to the whole manga versus anime thing. I don't want to get too into it because I made a whole video on it. But basically, yeah, the TV anime version is pretty bad in the end. I think the TV anime version is awesome. Let me get that out of the way. I actually enjoy most of the TV anime version of the story arc. The ending is the worst part of it because it's so anticlimactic. It makes no sense. And I don't mean the Zeno-sama thing where he comes in and just, erases everything. That's in both versions. The anticlimactic part is Trunks. I would say Trunks has, I don't know why. I guess the manga version, they either didn't know what the story was when they were writing this, and they just said Trunks can do stuff, and Trunks is there, and then Trunks goes berserker mode, but Trunks doesn't have reasonings behind anything. We knew that he fought against Majin Buu. That was about it. That Majin Buu. He fought against Balbara and Babidi. The manga version gives Trunks this insane backstory. He was basically a Kai in training, so Trunks is ridiculous in the manga. That I want to see in the anime. Please bring that into the anime. If you're remaking the story, let Trunks have his badass moments, his flashbacks, all that stuff about showing how he was a Kai in training. And then, of course, the ending, Trunks' weird Genki Dama sword he does, it really makes no sense. The anime version just pulls things out of their ass in the end, and I don't understand it at all. It makes no sense. The manga version is far, far, far better. So the ending of that, I would like to see get redone. However, there is only one moment in this anime version, and I think each story arc, we're going to have this one moment where please keep it, because it's, it's only in the anime. And that is Goku's moment where he's being pinned down and they you want to know what we did to your family. And then they tell him about killing, Goten and Chi-Chi, and all that stuff. And Goku flips out. And it's rare to get these rage moments from Goku. And Goku has this badass moment where he fights against, both Zamasu and Black, and he's fighting them at the same time. It is one of the coolest looking scenes I've ever seen. And it's not in the manga at all. So it's just I really don't want them to cut that out. So, because again, now please understand one thing, this remake is not following the manga to the T. That is not what this remake is doing. This is being a remake of the anime. They said they're going to try to stay in line a little more with what Toriyama wanted. And again, that's why I get to the point where the TV anime and the manga were being written at the same time, and they were kind of following some Toriyama notes. But neither of them, let's get that, I already said it in the beginning of the video, neither of them are what Toriyama would have written. He did not write either of them. Let's get that out of the way. Therefore, don't expect the TV anime version to be an exact copy of the manga. I do not expect that. Lastly is Tournament of Power. I just made a video on this, but the Tournament of Power, I don't know. For me, you could say removing some of the side fights and stuff like that is maybe what you would prefer, but if you're going to have a tournament where there's dozens of warriors fighting each other and you're only going to focus on the main characters, I don't know. It's just, that's not interesting to me. So that's why I don't like the manga version of the story arc. It's just I want to see all the other side fights. I want to see all of Universe 7 fighting. I don't want to just see Goku, Vegeta, Gohan fighting. I want to see everyone fighting. Give everyone a chance to shine. That's what I want to see. And I think the TV anime version succeeded in letting Universe 7 shine, letting them have their fun instead of just, like I said, even Gohan has one of the worst moments in it for me personally, because it makes no sense. Gohan goes toe to toe with Kefla. That there's no logic there. That Gohan should not be able to do that. That doesn't make any sense. But in the anime version, they keep Gohan more on a, not so strong level. He shouldn't be. He hadn't trained in a long time, so he shouldn't be that strong at this point, until he gets a superhero. But the point is, remaking this is going to be interesting. Where they go with the story, I have no idea. This video is just me talking and basically saying things I want to see, things I hope they don't do. So what about you guys? Honestly, this is just an open discussion because we don't know what they're going to do. The Beatus trailer they gave us doesn't spoil anything, and it only shows stuff that we already seen in the movie and the TV anime before, just with nicer animation. So it's pretty much up in the air at this point what's going to happen with this remake. So please comment below and tell me what you want to see in this remake. Are you even looking forward to this remake? Do you think it's just a waste of time? Let me know what you think. As always, like, subscribe, and share. Turn notifications on so you never miss a video, and see you soon.